Hi everybody, welcome to the third video on factorising at National 5, and in this video we're looking at common factors and a difference of two squares. Now when we're factorising at National 5 level, there's a checklist that we need to follow that will help us make factorising a lot easier and it will make it go a lot smoother. The first thing we should always check for is a common factor. What we looked at in the first video where we're looking for letters or numbers or a mixture of both. And in the second step, we look at a difference of two squares and what we did in the previous video. So we look for squares that are being subtracted. And the third one, we look at trinomials. I've put this in red because we're not going to be looking at any trinomials in this video. Trinomials we're going to be looking at in the next video. So moving into some examples. Here's our first one. We've got 8p squared take away 8q squared. First thing we always look for is a common factor. So here we can see 8 is a common factor in both. So I'm going to take that 8 out first as a common factor. Now, we've taken our common factor out. Let's check for a difference of two squares. This is a difference of two squares because this is a square, that's a square, and they're being subtracted. And with a difference of two squares, we have our double brackets. So p plus q and p minus q. Or it can be the other way around. It could be p minus q or p plus q. It's entirely up to you which way you want to do. Our next step, our next example anyway, we've got 4y squared subtract 100. Now you could immediately think, okay, I could just do this out as a difference of two squares because it is essentially there's a squares here and a square here, but it'd be a lot easier if we check for a common factor first. So in this case it could be 4. We can take 4 out of 4y squared and we can take 4 out of 400. So we get 4 to y squared subtract 25, and then we'll look for a difference of two squares which we have in the center here. So we get 4y minus 5 and y plus 5, because y is the square root of y squared and 5 is the square root of 25, and since it's a difference we need a plus and a minus. So it doesn't matter which way we do it, it's entirely up to you. Our third example, we've got 3x squared minus 75y squared. So common factor first, always a common factor. 3 goes into both of them. So 3x squared divided by 3 leaves us with x squared. Minus 75 divided by 3 gives us 25. And we've still got y squared at the end there. Second step, difference of two squares. These are two squares and they're being differed. So 3 double brackets, square root of x squared is x, square root of 25 is 5, and the square root of y squared is y. And since there's a difference, we need a plus and a minus, or a minus and a plus. Doesn't matter which way they go. Our next one, this one's a wee bit more complicated, a wee bit more tricky. So we've got 28t squared subtract 175 r squared. Now we first need to look at common factor. So common factor of 28 and 175 is 7. So 28 divided by 7 is 4. Still have our t squared. And 175 divided by 7 is 25. And we still have our r squared. Next, is there a difference of two squares? Yes, there is. So we need our double brackets. Square root of 4 is 2. Square root of t squared is t. Make sure I put that in both the brackets. Square root of 25 is 5. And the square root of r squared is r. And since it's a difference of two squares, we need a plus and a minus. And again, it doesn't matter which way we do it. So the key point here is our checklist. Common factor, always check for a common factor first. Here we had 8, 4, 3 and 7. Then we checked for difference of two squares, which we did have in the centre because both parts were perfect squares. And since there's a difference, we need to remember we need two sets of brackets, one with positive and negative, and it doesn't matter which order they go in.